The Casey Anthony case. The murder that shook America. Welcome back to Darkfiles, the place where we uncover the darkest corners of true crime history. Today, we'll be diving into one of the most controversial and heavily debated cases in modern American history, the Casey Anthony case. On July 15, 2008, 2-year-old Kaylee Anthony was reported missing from her home in Orlando, Florida. But what initially seemed like a tragic case of a missing child soon turned into a media frenzy as suspicion turned toward Kaylee's mother, Casey Anthony. Casey's behavior was nothing short of perplexing. She didn't seem to show the kind of grief expected of a mother whose child was missing. And as the case progressed, it became clear this was not just another missing persons case. It was a murder investigation that would divide public opinion, lead to a highly publicized trial, and leave a trail of questions that still linger to this day. What happened to Kaylee? Was Casey truly guilty, or was she a victim of circumstances? Stay with us as we break down the details of this controversial case and examine the facts, the media circus, and the legal battles that followed. The disappearance of Kaylee Anthony. It all began on July 15, 2008, when Kaylee Anthony, the beautiful 2-year-old daughter of Casey Anthony, was reported missing. But the story took a dark turn almost immediately. Casey Anthony told her parents, George and Cindy Anthony, that her daughter had been kidnapped by a babysitter named Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez. But when the police were called, Casey's story began to unravel. There was no babysitter, no leads, no one named Zenaida could be found, and Casey's behavior seemed incredibly strange. In fact, she waited 31 days before finally reporting Kaylee missing. This delay alone raised numerous red flags. But during those 31 days, Casey didn't seem concerned. She was out partying, drinking, and living her life as though nothing had happened. Even more troubling, she didn't show up to work at Universal Studios during this time. And when she did appear, her boss testified that she was acting unusually and didn't mention her missing daughter. It was the start of a case that would soon spiral out of control, and the press and public were quick to question Casey's motives. Was this a mother in despair? Or was there something much more sinister at play? As the investigation into Kaylee's disappearance progressed, the story Casey was telling began to fall apart. The police could find no trace of the mysterious babysitter, and Casey's accounts of the events surrounding Kaylee's disappearance grew increasingly inconsistent. The most shocking part of this was the evidence or lack thereof. Casey's car, which was found abandoned, had the unmistakable smell of human decomposition inside. Cindy Anthony, Casey's mother, even noticed the smell herself. And when investigators examined the car further, they found evidence of chloroform, a substance often used in kidnappings and murders. Despite these findings, Casey continued to deny any involvement in her daughter's disappearance, maintaining that Kaylee had been kidnapped by a non-existent babysitter. The mounting pressure from law enforcement led to Casey being arrested on July 16, 2008, just days after Kaylee was reported missing. However, the arrest wasn't for murder, it was for child neglect, making false statements, and obstruction of justice. At this point, it was clear to the public and authorities that there was much more to this case than a missing child. Casey Anthony's behavior and inconsistent story made it evident that the truth was far darker. The search for Kaylee, a heartbreaking discovery. On December 11, 2008, nearly 5 months after Kaylee's disappearance, a heartbreaking discovery was made. A meter reader, Roy Kronk, found the skeletal remains of a young child near the subdivision where the Anthony family lived. The remains were located in a wooded area, not far from Casey's home. After forensic tests confirmed the remains were indeed those of Kaylee Anthony, the case took an even darker turn. The child had been murdered, and the evidence pointed to one thing. Kaylee's death wasn't an accident or a kidnapping gone wrong. The cause of death was determined to be homicidal violence. But the manner of death, whether it was suffocation or something else, remained unclear. Casey Anthony was charged with first-degree murder on October 14, 2008. Her arrest and the discovery of Kaylee's body rocked the nation. How could a mother do such a thing to her child? Was this truly a case of cold-blooded murder? The trial and media frenzy. The trial of Casey Anthony began on May 24, 2011, and it quickly became a media spectacle. The courtroom drama played out in front of millions of people who had followed the case for years. The questions surrounding Casey's guilt or innocence were at the forefront of everyone's mind. The prosecution painted Casey as a mother who killed her daughter for personal gain, suggesting that she had suffocated Kaylee with duct tape in order to pursue her own life of partying and freedom. The prosecution argued that the motive was selfishness. Casey wanted to escape the responsibilities of motherhood. The defense, on the other hand, claimed that Kaylee had accidentally drowned in the family's swimming pool. They suggested that Casey had panicked and covered up the death, leading to the series of lies and inconsistencies. They also pointed to Casey's dysfunctional family dynamic as a factor contributing to her actions. The trial was filled with emotional testimony, graphic evidence, and a battle of legal strategies. But as the days wore on, the jury was left to weigh the evidence, and many people began to question, could Casey really be guilty? Or was she a woman who had been wrongfully accused? The verdict: a divided nation. On July 5, 2011, after more than a month of intense legal drama, the jury reached their verdict. Casey Anthony was found not guilty of first-degree murder. The verdict stunned the nation. Casey was acquitted of the most serious charges against her, though she was convicted of 4 counts of providing false information to law enforcement. She was sentenced to time served and released from jail after spending nearly 3 years behind bars. The public outrage was immediate. How could a mother be acquitted of killing her child? Was the justice system flawed? Or had the prosecution simply failed to present enough evidence to convict her? Many people still believe Casey Anthony is guilty, but others argue that the prosecution did not prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. The case left America divided, with some seeing her as a victim of circumstance, and others viewing her as a cold-blooded killer who got away with murder. The aftermath: what happened to Casey? Following her release, Casey Anthony's life has been filled with media scrutiny, public hatred, and a legal battle to protect her privacy. She has largely stayed out of the public eye, avoiding interviews and the constant attention that came with being at the center of a controversial trial. However, there are still some who believe she may never be free from the shadows of the case. As for Kaylee, her memory has lived on in the hearts of those who followed her story. A little girl whose life was tragically cut short, whose name became synonymous with heartbreak and a divided justice system. The enduring mystery of the Casey Anthony case. The Casey Anthony case continues to be one of the most debated and divisive legal battles in American history. Was Casey guilty of murdering her daughter? Or was she an innocent woman who simply made horrible mistakes? For some, Kaylee's tragic death will never have an answer, and the case will remain an enduring mystery. For others, it serves as a reminder of the dangers of jumping to conclusions without all the facts. Thanks for joining us today on Dark Files as we revisited the infamous Casey Anthony case. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of America's most controversial criminal trials, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to check out our next video on another unsolved mystery. Click on the link to watch more chilling true crime stories in our Dark Files playlist. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and always question the truth.